Okay, ready? All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Gull Lake Trail Steering Committee meeting from Nisswa. This is Monday, February the 27th. Welcome Mayor Ryan and Jenny for attending. So if you care to make comments anytime, please feel free to do that. You are the only ones in the audience. With us virtually tonight is Mark Ronai and Paula West, which I don't believe those two are online.
Mark just joined.
Pardon?
Mark is on.
Okay, Mark, are you there? Can we hear? Will he?
Yeah, he's on mute. I can see him.
Pardon?
I can see him.
So we'll be able to hear their comments, right?
Yep, he's on mute right now, though.
Okay, and Paula has yet to sign in?
She is logging on right now.
Okay, and the only person then is absent is Jess, and he should attend maybe later?
Possibly.
Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order with the approval of the agenda. Is there any deviation in the agenda as presented? If not, we'll move on to the minutes of the January 12th meeting. You've had a chance to review those, so I'd entertain a motion to approve with any amendments. So do it. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Tessa. No discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Open forum, I believe we can pass on that one. We'll get into the new business with item A, which would be review of the bid. So I'm going to turn this over to Amber, and you want to make comments where we should go from here?
Yes, thank you very much. This is a very exciting moment for us. So this is years and years in the making. Kind of moving from the design into hopefully what will be construction. So the goal tonight is to review and discuss the funding, the bids, and ultimately try and get a recommendation for City Council. City Council will be meeting March 2nd, which is Thursday, to hopefully award the bid.
And that is not a closed meeting.
That is not a
correct?
closed meeting, so you are welcome to attend.
Okay.
Okay, so in your packet, you have just a real quick memo for the base bid. That is for Nisswa, it is Hazelwood Drive and Lower Roy Lake Road. And then for Lakeshore, it's from 78 to just around the pit area. So that base bid, the lowest bid came in with Anderson Brothers. They also had the lowest base bid for the Nisswa alternate. Okay. Lakeshore has their city council meeting tonight to go over these documents in the bid. JTS Construction had the lowest bid when considering the base and both alternates, as well as the base plus the Lakeshore alternate. So that's kind of the difference between the two lowest bids, but ultimately the lowest base bid is Anderson Brothers. So do you guys have questions on that?
Why don't we wait till Jess gets
Sure
here
thing.
before we go any further? Hi,
So-
Jess. We're just getting started, so we'll wait here until you get set up.
So on this document, we have what I just stated is highlighted. Anderson Brothers right here is the lowest base bid at $2,784,590. As well as the low Nisswa alternate. Nisswa's alternate is base B. Lakeshore's alternate is base A. So in trying to pull this information together very quickly for you guys last week, kind of put together a lot of information on this document. And so looking at the amount of funding we've received is 3.2 million. That's including matching dollars and all of Nisswa's and Lakeshore's grants. The base bid at 2.7, we're looking at a difference of 478,489. So that number, that difference right here, does not take into account land acquisition or any of the engineering. The purchase of the actual land is reimbursable. The design is reimbursable up to 20% of the total project. So a couple distinctions there that I want to make. So,
I got a question on
Yep.
this too. So, in both of the grants, that including the state, and the federal, those design and the construction observation are qualify for either, both? Okay. Because there is some difference between the two grants as far as what's eligible. Correct?
yes, all of the different grants are slightly different. Not drastically different, minor nuances between all of them. But I know there was a couple of questions that were emailed to me over the last couple of days regarding some of the funding. And so I just want to bring up this document again that shows the legacy fund, the legacy grant, and what we've allocated for matching funds. Pretty much it's close to a 50-50 split between Nisswa and Lakeshore and what we've allocated for matching funds. And then the bid came back at 54% Lakeshore, 46% Nisswa. So it is still pretty comparable, trying to get close to that 50-50 mark.
And that was the base bids came in that way?
Correct.
Okay, so then if we were to add alternate B, which would be the remainder of this law, then that percentage would then switch, correct?
It would adjust that percentage, yes.
Yeah, so that's kind of a. Oh,
You're on,
He's got it on, just need to get
yeah,
closer.
that-
Okay.
I guess the question was related to how much Nisswa took on. Would that change the percentages between the two communities? Obviously, it would. So therefore, the cost of the portion of the design phase and the portion of the construction observation would then shift somewhat, although the construction observation appears to be broken down whereby we have a certain price for the base bid plus a certain price if we add in the Nisswa alternate. So I
Correct.
assume that would be fixed. The subcontract to Braun has not been broken down, but I presume that would be somewhat proportional.
Yep. That one's billed as
Mhm.
done. As work is done.
Okay, a couple of things, Amber. I just want to check in with Mark and Paula. Are you two hearing everything okay? And at this point, do you have any questions?
I can hear you fine. And no, I don't have any further questions. I'm looking at the sheet here in front of me.
I can't. Can we turn the
She does
volume?
not have questions and she is looking at the information in front of her.
Okay, Mark, how about, Mark, do you have any questions or comments at this point?
No, Mark's on mute. He's good.
Okay, Amber, I do have a question on the Lake Shore, the land acquisition. You have at this point 57,670.
Yes,
And then you have under Lake Shore 0. So where are we with the land acquisition? Is that 57,000 a solid number at this point?
no, that's estimated based on the dialogues that we've had. And then I also did get an update from Terry and Lakeshore. Their land acquisition cost, she is estimating at 150,000.
150, okay. And
Where are they acquiring property?
I would have to look at the plan documents, and as far as exactly which locations. But I do know, obviously, that was in the initial planning was not identified. And so this has come on throughout the process of finalizing the design.
Has she given you any feedback about the similar situations we're running into with a handful of landowners? Are they having similar issues?
They are, I don't believe, quite as far along in the process of their land acquisition.
Oh,
But no, I don't think it's not uncommon for these negotiations to go back and forth a little bit. And so I think she's well prepared, and has had those upfront dialogues with a lot of the landowners.
I would probably have to imagine it's a handful of properties compared to what we're dealing with on.
Well, it's
on
just
our
a
end.
couple of, we're down to just a couple now?
Well, we're still negotiating on that front for Nisswa, but the total amount of properties that they're looking to have to obtain property from is probably substantially higher than what ours are, just based off the residential portion of that County Road 77 front. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if it has to do with if some of them are commercial properties, which would impact
Yeah.
the appraisal value. And I think that might be one of the
Mhm.
differences, but I don't know exactly which properties and locations.
So
Okay, Bill, you have a question? Okay, but we're not, the land acquisition initiative will not hinder the starting date of construction, right? We're gonna move forward, correct? Even if the land acquisition isn't settled by construction start, or is?
For Nisswa, we have the condemnation process would land right about May, so we were shooting for about when road restrictions would be lifted.
Okay,
which historically are around that timeframe,
Yeah, early to mid-May, I would guess.
judging by today, sooner.
Hopefully sooner.
Yeah.
This is a quick update on that document there with I'll zoom in, with Lake Shore's 150,000 estimate puts the total land acquisition just over 200,000. You can kind of see some of the math here on the side between the land acquisition, reimbursable expenses, kind of the numbers that are not factored into the bid, comes to just over 500,000, 586,000. And then the difference in funding in the bid is at that 478,000. So you can see that we might be slightly over our funding by about 100,000, 108,000.
yeah, plus, you have to also add in the Woodsess construction observation.
Yep, this accounts for that.
217.
Yep, that's in there as well as the bidding. To
Okay, I
date,
see
our
it.
reimbursable expenses and then our
Okay, got
anticipated land acquisition. So we're very, in terms of what we have for total funding and all of those other components that we still have to pay for, many of which are grant eligible. That would use all of the funding.
Right.
So Amber, I have a question. Under the Woodseth contracts, I'm looking at page 11 in the packet, that nice little summary sheet you put together. Is this design phase money? Is that what we've already paid, or what is this for? Is this something new?
That is what we have already paid, yes.
Oh, okay. But you haven't been reimbursed for it?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so at this point, with the 586 plus the base bid, as you indicate, would come out, it's like 108,000 more than the grant money that's available between the two communities.
Between the two communities,
Now,
yes.
have we broken this down so that we look just at Nisswa. In other words, our percentage share of the base bid, our percentage share of the design, our percentage share of the construction observation, and of course, our land costs.
We don't have the design broken out between each city. That is one lump sum right now. So some of the other items are broken out in terms of, you know, the construction observation was outlined by city and the alternates. And then you can, in the bid document, it was broken out by city. So no, I have not added together all the different options to see what in total the percentages would equate to.
I guess what I'm driving at is what is Nisswa's basic obligation beyond the grant monies that we've got?
In specific to that 108,000, like a percentage base of
It
that,
would be for both communities.
right,
Right.
I'm looking at what it would be just for Nisswa.
right, whether
That's what you guys-
48% or 52%.
I'm sorry.
A certain fixed percentage of whatever that additional balance is what we're obligated for, you're saying, what we're footing the bill for? Right?
I'll say, if you look at this document that breaks down the grant funding, at least in matching dollars, Nisswa has committed, when you factor in the regional trail grant, it was a $25,000 matching to the $75,000 grant. So Nisswa is putting in $381,000 to Lake Shore's $400,000 in matching dollars.
So it becomes a little confusing here. I guess I always thought once we got to this stage, it's kind of like a marriage. We're in it together. And is that right? I mean, even if we go forward with another grant application, that's both.
Another grant we can do however we see best fit. We don't have to,
It wouldn't be a combination of both cities.
it doesn't need to be, no.
Hmm.
That's my understanding.
Well, okay, so so we're really looking this as a marriage. I mean, going forward, we're not going to be splitting anything percentage wise. Is that correct?
Once we get into construction with Seth, we'll be tracking which city the expenses are going to. So like the funding is going through Nisswa, but on the back end, it will be settled up between Nisswa and Lake Shore. Am I explaining that correctly?
So for example, they will be tracking quantities throughout the project. And at the end of the day, if Nisswa is 52% and Lake Shore is 48%, like they'd be the other way around, then we would pay our proportionate share for, say, the engineering fees. And Lake
Really?
Shore would pay likewise, yes. We can only predict so much on the front end. So we've agreed 50-50 at this point, just to make things simple and get these contracts moving forward, but they will track specific quantities. And everything will true up at the end. So ultimately, I think for Nisswa, our base bid is right in line with that $1.5 million that we have in total. I think, yes, there's likely to be some city contribution as part of this, but we've all kind of been expecting that. And I would hope that the council will be open to that, because this is such a complex project and there's so many variables for that as well. But I think this bid came in, wonderful, great news, all things considered. So that's really great. But to answer the question, yeah, everything will be tracked in the end, and we'll work through all the actual percentages. We're just trying to get as close as we can to what the likelihood is to get that picture for you now.
I think I'd echo that, Jenny. I mean, truly, we wouldn't want to have I would consider $100,000 deficit right now a speed bump compared to what we were projecting, right?
Right.
Which was like a
Yeah.
drawbridge pulled up and we're going to the river. Road's done. But as of right now, I mean, I think there's easy avenues for the council to discuss and go about funding for that, just to make sure that we don't have a substantial headwind to stop the project. In regards to this though, remind me, Amber, how much, if any, contingency is there associated to the project? Do we have any contingency that was asked for by the bidders, 5 or 10%?
I don't think it's built into the bid.
It wasn't required by the city, I guess, to include a certain fixed percentage for a contingency?
No.
No, okay. That's good to know.
So just a quick question. I finally figured out how to unmute myself. Things are going, sounds great, I mean, so far. My question that I had was, so I'm watching my grandchildren in Minneapolis tonight. The question I had was, you know, and the 50-50 thing is great. But you know, the amount of, you know, that would happen with Lakeshore with the complexity to finish this, that would be something that would be finished with grant dollars. There would not be an obligation going forward to NISWA to finish the, you know, if we didn't get the grant dollars to finish the next phase for Lakeshore, or just what is everyone's understanding on that? Just you know, we're not the decision makers, but what's everyone's thought on that?
My understanding is that future grants, unless applied for together, there wouldn't necessarily be any joint responsibilities to complete each other's sections. I think NISWA, moving forward, if we apply for a grant solely NISWA, then that's our responsibility, and Lakeshore would be the same. It's kind of goofy because each community is responsible for their funding and ongoing maintenance and operation. And so I think any future grants, if NISWA applies solely as NISWA for our remaining section, then we would not have any obligations other than general support, and whatever we can help do to complete all sections of the trail.
Amber, I have a comment on that. I think that's true, but when it comes to like, we've been talking about an LCCMR grant. I think that your chances of getting money, just from my experience in working with those, is that if you were able to position it as we need X amount for both NISWA and Lakeshore to finish this very final segment, it's going to resonate better with the LCCMR group than just trying to go in for our own specific needs. But that's something you probably should talk to the staff about
Sure.
before going any further with that.
Yeah, and as of right now, I mean, obviously all this is still very fresh, and you guys saw what NISWA or Lakeshore's alternate bid came back at, and so they have some difficult conversations to have in terms of how they, you know, their city can move through the process as well. And so, yes, it is definitely something for us to think about and consider, and whether, you know, it's more advantageous or not, and if we're both ready at the same time.
Well, it looks to be like that we can't, from a NISWA standpoint, can't go any further than accepting the base bid from Anderson Brothers.
With the grant
Correct.
funding allowed,
Pardon?
with the grant funding we have.
With the grant funding we have. And still, we're going to be in the deficit of over 100,000, right?
Between the two communities.
Between the two, yeah, right.
Potentially. Land acquisition's not firmed up.
Correct.
I guess a question that would come up would be, the council is going to be considering this later in the week. Presumably, the option in front of them at this point, as you point out, Roger, is to accept the base bid or not, excuse me, or not. But if we were to apply for an additional grant, that's, I think, the one I've heard referred to, I can't recall the initials on it. but-
LCCMR.
Yeah, the LCCMR. that's due at the end of March, do we have the option of going back to the contractor after we've accepted part of his bid to accept the other NISWA option if that became feasible?
The LCCMR money would not be available until July 1st, 2024.
Okay, so it's discontinuous as far as the contractor goes. Because in all likelihood that NISWA option is going to be more expensive to do by itself than it would be as a part of the overall project. mean,
I would
that's
anticipate that.
pretty common,
Mhm.
a common sense statement. It might not be, who knows at that point, but okay.
Okay,
Other-
any other questions on the bidding portion of this? Are we ready to entertain a motion for a recommendation to city council? Or are there any other questions?
I'd make a recommendation to the city council that they accept the base bids for NISWA's portion in conjunction with Lake Shore's portion in an early fashion as possible so we can continue with construction under the current grant.
Second.
Second by Mark. Further discussion? Hearing seen none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. Okay.
Awesome.
I know, really, I wish I was there in town. I would take everyone next door after the meeting and buy them a beer.
Okay.
Another time, Mark.
All right.
Okay, item B, the review of the Woodseth Construction Observation Agreement. In the packet, Amber has provided documents. So Amber, you want to lead that discussion?
Yes, so you can see in here it kind of outlines what the objectives and responsibilities are, kind of the components outlined for the construction observation agreement, which Woodseth would be responsible for overseeing. You got the project coordination management, construction progress meetings, construction stakings, the funding and labor compliance documentation, site construction services, project closeout. Within it, there is also a sub-consultant for material testing services. So that's where two different numbers have been submitted. It's also broken out into the base bids per city and the alternates. So it totals them, but you can see the itemized cost as well throughout it.
Okay, thank you. Bill has a question.
Just for clarification, then, in conjunction with what we just passed as a motion, we would be looking at 217,500 for that construction observation contract, plus the 26,400 for Braun.
Yep, the 217,500 for the base bid total, and then 26,400 for sub consulting. And the sub consulting is billed upon completion of work too. Well, they both are, but
So
just to be clear on that,
Yeah.
they deviate.
Mhm.
Is
So
this
I
a not?
asked, I asked Amber several questions regarding this Woodseth contract, and she forwarded my questions to our city engineer. And I did get the reply back. I don't think we need to answer them. These are things that some of them might generate some questions from the city council. But a couple of questions I asked, the city engineer put a question mark by him, and let me read that question. I say to the engineer, can the city negotiate construction length of time with Woodseth? Now, the construction length of time is identified as 8 months. Okay, and we all know that things can happen that would cause a delay, or as maybe even going into next year. And his reply was question mark. Can the city negotiate the length of time with Woodseth? So I don't know if that's something that the city council should follow up on. Amber, what do you think?
Well, and where that 8 months came from, so we had to identify the start and end of the construction season. So we're starting in March and it ends October 20th is what was listed in some of the documents that we had to previously provide. It does say in there, as we go through this process, things can come up, things, you know, if it is drastically changing the scope of the project, he did write that they will reevaluate the scope and provide information to us if it needs to extend beyond the 8 months. So I think there is flexibility to that. And I think from the city's standpoint, to be very much in tune and up to speed with all these monthly meetings and the construction progress and making sure that we're tracking and staying on that target date. And if we're not, then we can have the conversations with some ample running room to try and figure out what needs to happen with that 8 month.
Okay. Bill?
Roger, I think one of the things that, you need to think about or understand is that these dates were, I think, what the contractor bid on. So if you accept his bid, you're accepting these dates.
Right.
It's not something that you can go back after the fact and start changing. However, as Amber points out, there are outside circumstances that can happen, that can push that.
Weather
out.
can make
Yeah.
Acts of God,
Yeah,
you know, force majeure. I mean, are there LDs associated with the completion of this project that would further entice the contractor that's selected to get the project done on time or even ahead of schedule? That'd be a good question. A lot of municipals do insert those within a contract, you know, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 per day, be capped at 5-10% of what the contract value is. Anderson Brothers, I'm sure, is more than familiar with that for large highway infrastructure projects, but most times when a contractor of their scale are constructing these schedules, they're going to account for rain days. They're going to account for an act of God. Maybe they find an underground abandoned utility that they have to come have tested and sniffed out in case it's an abandoned gas line, right? I would think that they probably have that factored in there where 8 months should be more than plenty to get
Okay.
this done.
I think I saw somewhere some reference to liquidated damages, is what you're speaking of. Yeah.
Okay, is there any other questions on the Woodseth construction observation contract? That would include from Mark or from Paula? Any questions on that document?
No, not really, but I'm not familiar with the construction process. They have $239,000 here for site construction observation. What are exactly, just for my own clarification, what are they doing for that money? What kind of observations are they making?
Well, I think it kind of outlined it in the contract that we have, Paula. And
I think it's broken down.
it's broken down in the
Oh, okay.
the document.
In the actual contract?
Yes, it is. Mhm.
Okay, never mind then. I will refer to that.
Okay.
I would say it doesn't necessarily have a full itemized numbered list for that one. But that would probably include some of their hourly wage to conduct those tasks.
Okay,
QA, QC, assuring that the project is being constructed,
Yeah.
everything's being installed to standard, having
So-
somebody on site at probably all time.
Yeah, my
Or-
guess is that kind of sums up some of the hourly wage to complete
Yeah,
the
right.
tasks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we prepared now to make that, recommendation to the, city council? If there's any other questions? Okay, I'd be prepared to, entertain a motion, and that motion should, I'm assuming, include the Braun Intertech, document also. Is that correct?
Yes, please.
So in the motion, please include both contracts.
Right, I'd make a motion that we recommend to the city council that they, in conjunction with the city of Lake Shore and subject to the city of Lake Shore, approving as well, that we would accept the construction observation contract in the amount of $217,500 plus the subcontract, with Braun Engineering Testing of $26,400.
Okay, do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Second by Tessa. Further comments? Further comments from Mark or Paula?
no,
Nope.
Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
aye,
Motion carried. Okay, moving on. We are into the old business, the grant and budget updates. I provide ideas, recommendations to staff for future funding opportunities.
Yeah, so I left this one on here to follow up from January's discussion, and we've kind of already touched on it with the LCCMR. And just now that you guys have seen how the bids have come back, I wanted to keep this on the agenda to see if there's any follow-up discussion, ideas, or recommendations that we wanted to discuss.
Yeah, so let's talk about the deficit here we're facing, and thank goodness it's not as large as it was, but we obviously need more money, which means we need to write some more grants, but that grant money, if it's approved, wouldn't be ready for this construction season. And I guess it's not our responsibility to figure out where to come up with the extra money unless we could get some donations, or somebody that wins the Powerball can make up the balance. So I thought I'd just bring that up for discussion. I mean, we've got somehow, that's what this item we're talking about now is future funding, because we definitely are needing more money. So it's obvious that we need to write an additional grant, but that's not going to help us this year.
Well, we still have some funds left over from the American Relief Plan Act. There's other avenues that we could go for, again, private donations. I think that we can rally the community to work up whatever is our percentage of that deficit that's going to be. Could be a little bit higher than 108 based off of the negotiations for the land. So I feel pretty confident that it's not going to be a detriment to the project going forward. And I think that the rest of the council will be on board with trying to see it through and support.
well, Amber, at one point you were exploring the idea of submitting an LCCMR grant. What are your feelings on that now, since it's only 4 weeks away?
Yeah, really gotta try and find some time in my schedule. It's coming right up, and I have made a profile with the LCCMR. So I have all the questions, and I've tried to see what kind of narrative I can come up with. Again, that is looking at only Nisswa. It's not a joint grant. But yes, it's not a whole lot of time to put it together and, yeah, I need to revisit it, for sure, but kind of the thought was to try and not lose momentum at the same time and see if, if we're so fortunate as to get selected, then great. And if not, then we keep going.
Well, the fact that Fairview was able to get money from LCCMR is a good precedent.
Mhm.
And again, as I said earlier, I would talk to the staff as soon as possible to see what their feelings are in terms of a single grant or going in as a joint grant with Lakeshore.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think that's
and-
a great idea.
Yeah, if you wanted to arrange a conference call, I would be happy to participate in that.
And
Could
in
you
addition, were you making another comment, Paula?
No, this is Mark. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me right this second, but how much was the NISWA add-on to the base bid?
500,000.
510,000.
All right. And that was to cover that, what was included in that again?
77. So from the corner of Lower Roy Lake Road to the county line.
And that was 500,000. Wow.
Yeah, 510,000.
Okay. I thought that was over, I thought it was like 4 or something, but just couldn't remember off the top of my head. Thank you.
Okay, anything else, Mark?
Well, other than the fact we should just ask the city to cover it. We should make a motion. We recommend that they cover it and get it over with and be done with it. But that's probably doesn't have a lot of legs.
Can always toss it out there.
He technically just needs a second, so.
Yeah, right.
Well, and I think Bill made a good
Okay.
point earlier of, going back for, as a standalone is likely gonna be a greater cost than
Yeah,
what was
to
bid
do it
in this
together.
project. So in whatever funding options we do in the future, to keep that dollar amount in mind.
Jenny?
I would just say I would anticipate that there will be a lot of excitement about getting the trail finished once everyone uses the new trail that we did complete. And hopefully maybe that would help get more letters of support or things like that
Yeah.
as well. So
Yeah.
ideally, it's not exactly, back-to-back projects, but that might help us as well.
Yeah.
Positive
Absolutely,
press.
it sure will.
Yeah.
So, getting back to Paula's, LCCMR, comments, I believe that, Mayor Ryan and you, Jenny, are going to be visiting the Capitol soon. And you have an appointment with, our state legislator. And you're going to be bringing up, bringing him up to date on what's happening with the trail. And you might ask him how he feels about what Paul suggested, whether we go alone or put an grant application in together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we'd love to, make sure that Representative Heinzman is familiar with everything and what's going on. And also if we decide to put an application in or whatever support we need. I'm guessing he's been very
Okay.
supportive of NISWA and recreation in general. So I think that would be we will make sure to have that conversation.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I think that's great. Good timing. So on that particular line item, at this point, is there any other comments or are we ready to move on? Amber, do you have any other comments on that particular topic, the future funding opportunities? I guess at this point, I don't have any additions to add. Anyone else? If not, item B is the committee question and answers. Are you referring to the document that is in our packet?
Yep. So over the last couple of weeks, these were weeks, months. Couple of questions that had been tossed out there looking for answers. So you guys, one of the big ones that we've kind of talked about here are the eligible and ineligible expenses. So I wanted to list that out. This list is coming off the GMRPT's grant contract. So you have an idea of exactly what's eligible or ineligible in this case.
Right, and that's, I'm glad you included that. The other one were a couple of questions that Bill had asked in regards to the asphalt mix. Bill, do you have any further comments that you want to make on that?
I had two things we talked about. One was the use of RAP, the recycled asphalt, as a part of the mixture. And while I agree 100% with the comments that came back as it relates to highways and roadways, I still don't agree with it for trails for the reasons that I expressed before, because I think you're introducing some pretty hard oil into the mix. Not a lot, but it could have a small effect at least, or maybe a little larger than small effect. The other one is on the question of root intrusion from particularly Aspen Grove areas. And we've seen it, the trails over toward Deerwood are terrible that way. There's some of it on the Paul Bunyan just south of our driveway. I don't know that adding the 2 inches, I don't disagree with adding the 2 inches of class 5 over the normal 4, but I don't think that's going to help the root intrusion question that much. I think the only thing that I think would work for that would be some sort of a herbicide, persistent herbicide applied directly under the pavement just before they pave it, that would, or salt even, that would discourage the root intrusions, but it's not part of the bid. So it's, I think at this point, it's a moot question.
Okay. Any comments on the, you talked to me about the couple line items that you.
Yeah, I was going,
thought were
I was kind of wondering what
questionable.
the cost of the extra 2 inches of class 5 was today, and I was looking at the quantities, and I came up with, I couldn't find a quantity for the class 5 under the trail. It was clarified by the engineer, and I hope the contractor sees it that way as well. But apparently the 6 inches of class 5 under the 2.5 inches of blacktop is incidental to the blacktop. I don't know why he set it up that way, but that was the answer back from the engineer. So presumably the contractor saw the note 13 or whatever it was and bid it accordingly. You're going to have a $250,000 argument.
Okay, very good. Any other comments on that document, the question and answer? Okay, in the on the agenda also is the land acquisition update. Amber?
Yeah.
Any, in addition to what, there's some other information you want to present?
Yep, just a quick update on that one. City Council had a closed meeting last week to discuss land acquisition. We have made contact with all property owners, which is great. We are pretty much finalizing several of them, with just a handful remaining. So it is moving along. Like I said, we have that condemnation process lined up for May, to coincide with what we presume would be kind of breaking ground. So it is moving along, and we're getting good direction from City Council, and have engaged with all property owners.
Okay, any questions, comments on the land acquisition? Okay, in the packet is also the timeline document.
Yep, so this timeline document has been updated. Everything that is highlighted was on the agenda tonight. So with all of these items, that would complete what I've identified for this committee. And so kind of ties into the next one, 6E meeting schedule. I, at this time, do not have any more tasks for this committee. Doesn't mean they won't come up, but just we don't have anything identified at this time.
Okay. Any comments, questions? So the city council was meeting this Thursday, March 2nd, correct?
Correct,
So at 6 o'clock?
correct.
They'll also be reviewing the roundabout
Yes,
project also, right? Okay. So, we're invited to attend that meeting. I think I might, in just in case there are questions or support needed, to provide the city council. Okay, we are ready to talk about the next meeting, if we have one in March, possibly not.
it would have been March 9th, so most likely not. But again, we still have to get through Thursday, and then that starts then the contract with Anderson Brothers, presuming that Lakeshore's also approving everything. And so at this point, I'll say no, but there's always a chance.
Yeah, okay, all right, very good. Okay, and finally, we want any other final discussion comments? I would like to make a comment. It doesn't relate to the Nisswa portion. My comment and concern is the Lakeshore portion. And especially the portion of their trail that is highly expensive. And that's the modification they had to make to the trail because of the archaeological find. All right, I'm basically talking about the boardwalk that Lakeshore has to put in. And the reason why Anderson Brothers bid on alternate A, which is Lakeshore's alternate, is because of that boardwalk. That's item 29, line item 29A, I believe, on the sheets. Woodseth projected that boardwalk was going to cost $610,000 for a boardwalk. Okay, $610,000. 662, excuse me. Anderson Brothers comes in with a bid on that boardwalk at $2.3 million. $2.3 million for a boardwalk. That's why their alternate A is so much higher than our alternate. I guess I proposed the question is, why are we doing that modification by having a boardwalk rather than bringing it out on the shoulder for a half mile? I don't know what the length is there, but Lakeshore already has the trail as a shoulder going from Bar Harbor all the way to the restaurant. What's the name of the restaurant?
Sherwood Forest.
Sherwood Forest is a shoulder trail. Why can't they do the same thing there? And forget about spending $2.3 million on a boardwalk. So that's my frustration I have right now on this project. Bill, any? And I think there's some other things that relate to that boardwalk that's also very expensive. So it's I don't know, a little overkill, I think. But they have to make that decision, and but I don't know if it's going to ever affect us or not, but it could if if we put the two projects together for an additional grant, that might raise some eyebrows by someone. Anyhow, any other comments, questions?
None.
Okay, well, I appreciate everybody's comments and concerns. I appreciate your support and comments, Jenny, and I'm glad that Mark and Paula could join us. Mark and Paula, do you have any closing comments?
No,
Go ahead.
just glad we're moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's fabulous. And Bill, I mean, and Roger, I think what's going to end up happening is it's going to just de facto, it's going to end up on the side of the road because no one's, getting that 2 million is going to be forever, most likely. So we're just going to end up there. So that's, it won't be, it probably won't be
Mark,
marked.
do I understand you support my concern?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
I do.
All
Okay,
right, thank you.
but
All right.
great progress, everyone. And Amber and everyone on the staff for the city, great work.
Thank you.
Very good. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, motion to adjourn? Okay, thanks, everyone.